Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for checking out today's conversation, Moveable Feast, introducing a new opportunity for writers as part of 1455's third annual Summerfest. I'm Sean Murphy. I'm the founder and executive director of 1455. And those of you that are not familiar with us, I'll say briefly, our mission is very simple. We like to say that we celebrate creativity and we try to build community. And really how we do this is we celebrate storytelling. And by celebrating storytelling, we want to talk to and speak with and learn from storytellers. So our free programming throughout the year includes author interviews. We have a monthly author series. We've got a bi-monthly magazine. We do workshops. And of course, our signal event each year is our Summerfest, which we want to be inclusive and free and full of good information so that writers can come here and find their kindred spirits and community. What we want to talk about today is a new endeavor. When 1455 started, the initial goal, or one of the big goals we had, was to establish a year-round writing retreat in Virginia, where I'm from. And that is still a longer-term goal. That's going to require some funding, some management, and maybe a couple of phone calls from people with lots of zeros after their tax returns. But while we're working toward that, we don't want to wait around, because the people that I'm going to talk to today all agree with me that the time has never been more important to support writers, connect with different writers, and build community in any way possible. And what better way to do that than to take advantage of existing opportunities that have been successful and feature some of the prettiest places in and outside of America with the opportunity to grow from that. So we'll talk a bunch about how this idea came together, what it means when we say Moveable Feast, what we're talking about. But I would love to briefly introduce my cohorts, and then we're going to talk about what we're doing and how we're going to pull it off and why we want you involved. So let me start with Karen Karbo, who's checking in from France, where, as we joked before we came on, it's not only cocktail hour, it's past cocktail hour. So we thank her for being with us later in the evening. Karen is the author of 14 award-winning novels, memoirs, and works of nonfiction. Her short stories, essays, articles, and reviews have appeared in Elle, Vogue, O, Esquire, Outside, the New York Times, Tin House, Salon, Slate, and other magazines. She is the author most recently of Yeah, No, Not Happening, How I Found Happiness, Swearing Off Self-Improvement, and Saying Fuck It All, and How You Can Too. Karen, thank you for being here. Checking in from Brooklyn with the amazing bookcase behind her is Jeanne McCulloch. She is a former editor at Vogue, managing editor of the Paris Review, senior editor at Tin House, and the founding editorial director of Tin House Books. Her critically acclaimed memoir, which was featured at 1455 Summerfest 2 years ago, All Happy Families, was published by HarperCollins in 2018. Her essays, interviews, profiles, and fiction have appeared in the New York Times, Vogue, Allure, O Magazine, Tin House, Paris Review, and several anthologies. She is the co-founder and co-director with Rex Weiner of the Todos Santos Writers Workshop in Baja. And speaking of Rex, he is here from California. He is the editor, author, journalist. He is an editor, author, journalist, screenwriter, and all-around cool guy. He is a contributing writer to LA Magazine. His articles have been published in Vanity Fair, The New Yorker, the Los Angeles Review of Books, the Paris Review, and Capital in Maine. He is the executive director and co-founder of the Todos Santos Writers Workshop and serves on the board of trustees of Beyond Baroque, the Literary Center. He lives in Frogtown, a few steps from the LA River. You can find him online at rexweiner.com. And finally, Justen Ahren, checking in from the lovely island of Martha's Vineyard, is a poet, photographer, musician, and writing workshop facilitator. He's published 2 collections of poetry, A Strange Catechism from 2013 and A Machine for Remembering from 2019. His poems have been set to music by Grammy Award-winning composer Glenn Roven and Cuban composer Ileana Perez Velasquez. He also is the founder and former managing director of the Noepe Center for Literary Arts at Martha's Vineyard. Friends, thank you for being here. where to begin? What I would love to do, I kind of talked a little bit about what 1455 is and how we came to be. I would love to just go around the room and everyone can talk a little bit about what their specific backgrounds are as it relates to retreats, workshops, and how we came to even get together in the first place. I think that'll set a good tone for what we've done and lead up to what we're wanting to do. So we can go by order of the introductions. Karen, if you want to kick it off, you're welcome.
Hi, Sean. First, let me say just how amazing this is that, I mean, I know we all have Zoom fatigue or, whatever, given this past year, but how amazing this is that we can all check in from all our different corners of the world. And audio works and video works. So I'm coming to you from a small village in the deep south of France called Collioure. I'm about 10 miles north of the Spanish border on the Mediterranean, where the Pyrenees Mountains meets the sea. And perhaps just that small description is all I need to say about why my husband and I decided to sell our house, sell our belongings, get rid of our car, and move to Collioure in 2019. It is truly one of the most magical places on earth. Prior to that, in 2017, we had been coming here on vacation year after year after year. And one of the things that really drew me to this place is sort of is the sensory environment. And something that, as we were coming here, and I also have done quite a bit of teaching throughout the years, and I was starting to see with a lot of my students' work is that, the idea that most of us sort of live in two dimensions, that the three-dimensional world was becoming a bit paltry in their writing. And so I created this workshop called Come to Your Senses. And people come for a week, and in this beautiful, beautiful part of France, we focus on developing that muscle, or I want to, I guess, say redeveloping that muscle, engaging with the natural world, using our senses to tell a story. It's an all-inclusive workshop. They just have to get themselves here, and we take care of the housing. We have a wonderful chef who cooks Mediterranean food of the region. And it's really just an experience and an opportunity for writers to come and just forget everything in their day-to-day world and dive into French culture and come to their senses, as it were.
Amazing. Thank you. Jane, tell us about yourself.
Okay, thank you. And I agree. It is lovely to be here and see you all here from your various corners of the sky, united in the idea of sharing the written word. As Sean said, I was an editor at Vogue, but after that, for a long time, I was at the Paris Review for 10 years as the managing editor, and then went on to be one of the early editors of Tin House magazine. And then when we started a book imprint, I was the editorial director of Tin House Books, which is now grown into something wonderful and is a small press in Portland, Oregon. I just applaud from the sidelines now, but I'm very proud of them. I'm proud of it. Anyway, and I've also been teaching for a long time. I met Rex in 2012, and at the time I met him, I had been told by the woman who introduced us, who was my editor, Karen,
and also my editor,
and Karen's editor too, also introduced us. Yes, all the entanglements. I had been told by her that he lived in this wonderful old house in the middle of a town in Baja called Todos Santos, where the desert meets the sea, as opposed to the Pyrenees meeting the sea. And he was a writer. He shared the house and had bought it with fellow writers and filmmakers, and that he was interested in starting a workshop there. And I had had this experience on behalf of the Paris Review. I had gone around all over the country speaking on behalf of the Paris Review at various conferences and workshops, hoping to discover new writers. And then also at Tin House, I was there throughout the beginning of the Tin House Conference, which is also now grown into something wonderful that I applaud from the sidelines. And it was wonderful then too. So I had some experience in how this could work. I hadn't yet been to Todos Santos to see how truly spectacular the town was and how truly spectacular Rex's house was. And we meet in a big courtyard. There are gardens in the back, and we have folding tables and chairs under various trees where the various workshops meet. Poetry is under figs, and my memoir class is under a palapa. Karen teaches with us, and your memoir class is under what, a mango tree or something like that.
And there was a very, a homely orange tree was also involved.
Yes. Oh well. At any rate, we started the workshop in 2014. We started with sort of a test case group of the expats in town just to see if this made sense at all. And gradually over time, it's grown. We're now going into our 9th session this winter, 2022. 2020 was online, it was virtual, but we're hoping to return to Todos Santos for 2 weeks in February and welcome people that have really become part of our workshop family over the years. We have a lot of return participants. We're also very interested in including new writers and just sort of opening our arms to a larger community, which is why, speaking for myself, and Rex will speak for himself, I'm so thrilled that all of us are here together, sharing what we know about the literary community and introducing our workshops to each other and to a larger group. So Rex, can I throw the whatever over to you now?
Well, thank you, Jay, and thank you, Sean, for being the ringleader here. Your 1455 is an awesome venture, and Justen and Karen in your far-flung places. It's great to join with you. And Karen, good to see you all the way in France. Next time we see you, we'll be in Todos Santos.
Will.
And so, yeah. But I want to say that, meeting Jeanne McCulloch and having her bring her expertise, her experience with workshops and publishing and editing to this little dirt road town called Todos Santos, to this crazy haunted hacienda, was quite wonderful to, part of my master plan. But the truth is that I had never been to a writing workshop, and I'd never taught anything having to do with writing, and I've never actually been, I don't have a degree in what I do, but for 50 years I've been a journalist. I've had a major motion picture made from some fiction stories. I wrote about a rock and roll detective. I am on the board of Beyond Baroque, a great literary institution here in LA. I've been very lucky to have the career that I've had. And as it turns out, you don't know what you know until you try to teach how you do what you do. And so it's been a major revelation in my life to have this workshop take place, to see it grow, to work with Jay and Karen and my co-owner of Casa Dracula, as it's known, Gordon Chaplin, a great novelist, and with Christopher Merrill, who is the director of the International Writing Program at the University of Iowa. It's all been a terrific honor to work with everybody and to have the people come to the workshop from all over the world who have shown incredible growth and been able to write things that they perhaps thought was not possible, but imagined it could be. And it's just been a wonderful experience to have everyone come together in that way, and to assemble a larger group of groups like this is a terrific opportunity for people interested in writing to have a larger choice of where they can go, when they can go, who they can study with, who they can learn from, and where they can have some fun with their writing. Because underlying everything that I do personally is the idea of serious play. You know, you play with the language, you play with the forms, and you have your fun with it, but it's serious. And in the end, you come out with something more than what you entered with. And for me, that's the Todos Santos experience. And I look forward to sharing that with more people and to being part of the larger experience that you all create.
Thank you so much for that. And not last nor least, Justen.
I thank you. I mean, what an honor, first of all, for me to be here with all of you, Sean, Karen, Jane, Rex, and to, it's just another, I think, thing in my life that just extends what I feel like I've been working on and for over the last 20 years, or what's becoming more apparent to me. And in addition to my creative work and my family life, I see working with writers and encouraging writers and creating community for writers and time and space for writers as my service in this lifetime. That's become more apparent to me as I've gotten older, and as I meet more and more people. I've been blessed with meeting literally thousands of writers through my work as first in the MFA program at Emerson College, as a teacher at various workshops around the country and around the world, and then as founder of Noepe Center for the Literary Arts. Met thousands of writers and had opportunities to hear their stories, to I think give them the gift of time and space to write, and in a community that is conducive to creativity. And so to be part of that and to be part of this group is really just an extension, as I said, of the work that I've been doing for years. And so that feels really great and natural to be part of a Moveable Feast. And I look forward to just, growing that community from here. So my work, as I mentioned, I was an MFA student at Emerson College. I finished in 2003 when my second child was born. And for a couple of years, I attended a few workshops. I went to a residency in Costa Rica, but I kind of felt adrift a little because I had just exited this community of the MFA and really felt part of something. And then I was without that for a couple of years. And at that moment, just as I was thinking I needed to create something here in my home on Martha's Vineyard, this really wonderful and generous friend came in, who has been in my life, approached me, and as the universe would have it, literally walked into my room and said, I've been thinking, I have this beautiful house in Martha's Vineyard, and I'm not really using it. Do you have any ideas on how I could, what I could do to use it, to put it to use? And I said, funny you should ask. I've been wanting to create a residency where writers could come. And she said, well, what do you have in mind? And I said, I don't know. All I keep seeing is a long table with lots of writers sitting around having a big meal. And she said, well, go do it. Do it. I'll give you the house. And I ended up, this was 2007. I took over the property for the month of October every year. And we had a writer's residency. And within 2007, by 2013, the what's the word? Not the need, but the requests for space from writers had grown so immensely that she offered me the house from April through October every year for writers to come. And we filled these, it was a 10-bedroom house. And we filled these bedrooms with writers. And we did exactly that, as Sean can attest to, because that's how I met Sean. He first came as a writer in residence, and then he was my artist in residence and then in resident, and then the manager with me at Noepe. And so he saw firsthand. We sat down and had many meals together with the writers. And so the first thing we would do, every group that came in, we would cook a big meal, and we would sit down and we would go around and hear each other's stories. And I felt like that breaking bread together, I know it's kind of trite, but there is something about sharing a meal together and hearing everyone's stories that, as Hannah Arendt, a wonderful philosopher, wrote about, true city is in a physical space. It's this interaction and storytelling that happens amongst people when they get together and truly share and can be themselves and can be seen for who they are and see people for who those others are. And so that's kind of what I've tried to follow through with all of my, what I've done since Noepe. I started now something online called a devotion to writing, which is just to encourage people to have a daily writing practice. And I teach that all over, mostly in Italy for the last 7 years. I've been taking a workshop taking a group of participants to Orvieto, Italy. And once the pandemic is over, we'll resume that. But in the meantime, the blessing of Zoom has been that we can reach people all over the world without having to, to get out. And for some of us, either financially or because of health reasons or what, obligations, being able to gather our tribe over on an online community has really worked out for a lot of us. So I look forward to kind of continuing those works, the Italy workshop and devotion to writing, and also, here with a Moveable Feast and how we can all work together. To me, that's what's really exciting about what this is that it exposes not just the writers that I work with, but the writers that the others in this group work with, more opportunities. It's just, exponentially increasing this kind of universe in which those we work with and want to inspire and help on their path as writers, we give them more opportunities to write.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks to all of you. I think it was really important to establish, through the bios, of course, what our kind of pedigrees are and our track record, our day jobs and our creative lives. But all of us have been transformed in various ways by our experiences running or being part of, supporting a active retreat-workshop. And I think the critical thing for anyone that's watching this now is like, okay, I get it, but what's the idea? Are you just working together to promote each other's places? And the answer on one hand is yes. Like we have recognized that, and I think all of us could speak very eloquently to our conviction that, and any writer probably can speak to the notion that writing is by nature a very solitary endeavor. So there, even people that are achieving at high levels, a lot of that is in a room alone. And I think those of us that left academia lost that intense fellowship and the stimulation. So there's an itch that gets scratched when you get around other writers for more than, say, an afternoon or a weekend. That's a different type of magic. But I think what we all are obsessed with is the idea of community and building community and what that means and why it's important. So I'll briefly tee it up and we'll welcome thoughts, because I know you each all have a lot of convictions about this. My feeling, and really what the impetus behind 1455 was, this notion of when writers come together, when communities come together, you almost can't avoid cliches, but the rising tide that lifts all boats, that might not be true always in society, which is why I think it becomes a cliche. In the artistic realm, it's absolutely true, because even though the internet gives us all these opportunities to connect and get our work out there, we're also we're barraged with information. So it's harder than ever to find meaningful community, to find real engagement with other people. So having the opportunity to slow down, practice your craft, but discuss your craft and find solidarity with other people that are serious about what they do, we all can attest to the fact that is enriching on a personal level, but the power of inspiration that comes out of that reaches across, zip codes, genres, and really has an impact that comes back to each individual, but also lifts the art world. So I think what we're trying to do in our modest way is kickstart this notion of there's so much competition and there's so much isolation. When we're willing and able to work together and share resources, great things can happen that everybody benefits from. But I'd welcome everyone to kind of talk a little bit about what you mean, what community means to you and how it relates to why we all are so passionate about trying to make this work.
One thing I would say is when people get together in a workshop environment, whether it's on Zoom or in person, they get very used to talking to each other in a very intimate way. I teach nonfiction, memoir, and personal essay, so it's really personal. But what we've noticed at Todos Santos, and I think that, Karen, this is true in your workshop too, is that friendships get created through people attending a workshop together, and they can become each other's feedback partners throughout the year. So it's not just that we're introducing them to each other for a week and then they scurry away, but really their community now extends out much further. And a lot of writing groups have come out of these workshops too, which I think is huge because we're always looking for trusted fellow writers to share in a writing group some sort of feedback.
Well, and something I think to draft off of that a little bit, Jay, is there's an old saying that calamity brings people together. And I'm not suggesting that in any way any of these writing workshop experiences are calamitous, but when you do travel to another place and you're pushed just a little bit outside your comfort zone, you do tend to bond with other human beings in a very magical way. And that just backs up what you've said, is that these friendships are built and this trust is built. And people who come, to the south of France, to this place they've never been, they kind of have a life-defining experience. They bond with each other, and hopefully they also, because they're in this situation, are able to take risks in their writing that if they were sitting in their little nest, might not be possible. So a lot of different things are happening that I think are incredibly exciting, especially because, people, because of the environment that the writers are in, that they're pulled away from their devices. They almost have no choice, even though we do have Wi-Fi. So don't be afraid. You can come to Todos Santos. You can come to Coulier. We have Wi-Fi, but the idea is that the physical three-dimensional world with people in it are so attractive and so sublime that your device takes a backseat naturally. So, there's a lot going on that makes it extraordinary, I think, an extraordinary experience for writers and humans, writers and humans.
Rex, Justen, you want to weigh in with some further thoughts? Justen, I know you certainly, you and I could speak all day about, the how transformative it is to, one reading after having broken bread, and what Jane and Karen just said, and I'm sure Rex can also weigh in and speak to this. We're not talking about superficial connections. I think because it's removed from the industry, whatever that means, in academia or a professional setting, this is your community if you're very serious about your craft and feel like you aren't able to talk about or commiserate, let your guard down. It's not superficial so much as you're finally finding that demographic that I think is a very small one, but a very passionate one, that this is as important as anything in their life. And you will be shocked how quickly you cut through the trivia and get to the heart of the matter, and people become lifelong friends. And the fact that we're all speaking to that attests to what I would call the magic of what happens at these retreats. It's far beyond the opportunity to have time and space to create and connect, which is its own absolute ROI. but this magic, the secret sauce is these meaningful connections that are both professional and personally satisfying.
Yeah, speaking to that, what we're engaged in, and you mentioned this earlier, Sean, the nature of the work is we're isolated. And during that time of isolation, we kind of disappear from the world into the world that we're writing. And whatever we're wrestling with there, and it might be plot, it might be character development, it might be line breaks, it might, whatever it is, we're wrestling with that for however long, prolonged period of time. And then to emerge from that and to be able to sit with others who recognize that struggle, because a lot of times, I can't just go talk to every friend of mine or even my spouse about that and have them understand exactly the tension that is there, and the frustration at times, and the elation. So to be able to talk with others who are experiencing that, and even to kind of help you along with that issue, like, hey, how have you treated this character? Or how do you do this? Or what do you think of this line? To be able to talk in to that detail about what we're so passionately involved with, I think is beyond rewarding. I don't even have a word for it, but I think, Sean, what Sean, Karen, Jay, you all have expressed, that it creates this connection, which is really you can't replicate.
And I think you're also, I try and create an experience where, you're very cared for, your physical needs are cared for, yet you're enough outside of everything that's familiar that breakthroughs happen. They have to happen. You're disoriented enough that, I see it again and again, and I'm sure you all do too, is that, a writer thinks they're going down one path, writing about one thing, and it kind of cracks open, and it's really about something else. And here are all these people there to witness the moment and to share it, and to hold it. So it's, like I said, it's a quite exquisite experience, I think, just to make that pilgrimage to another place, wherever it may be, and submit to that experience of community building and of creating this bond with people that you may not think initially you have much in common with, either personally or as writers. We all have our lanes, right? We all have our genres. And oftentimes, many workshops are divided into genres, right? So the cross-pollination that can happen when you go on a retreat of this nature is something that I just think you can't really replicate elsewhere. At least I hope that's the case. And of course, there's rosé. So. Or tequila.
Toujours rosé.
One feature of your workshop, Karen, because I'm fortunate enough to teach in Karen's workshop in addition to her. We're fortunate that she teaches with us. That we also have is a final open mic night for the students in all genres to read a piece of their work. So it also gives one an opportunity to have a sense of, this is what I did this week, and this is what I'm sharing. And particularly for people in different genre, you get to, you hear the poets, you hear the fiction writers, you hear the memoirists or the playwrights, and there is that sense of, oh yeah, that's what's going on. And even though we have some events in the afternoon that include absolutely everybody, we have a craft discussion with a panel of the whole faculty, and we have some other events. I think they're listening to each other read really becomes a wonderful sort of finale for this kind of workshop experience.
I think one thing that we have in common in the workshops that we conduct is that we create a supportive atmosphere that makes it all right to fail. Mm-hmm. And yeah. to anyone who's been writing for a while, that you get to the middle of something and you think, oh my God, this is going nowhere. This is terrible. how am I going to get myself out of
I'm
this?
there right now, Rex. This is painful.
So many people quit at that moment and
Yeah.
put the manuscript in the drawer or something. My particular workshop is strategies to get started or to get unstuck. And I know Justen teaches the same sort of thing, in which, you know, how do you get off the ground? How do you get something started? And if you're in the middle of something and you lose your way, what happens next? And in my own life, my professional life, that's that's every morning. I'm stuck. I'm always trying to get started, and but I have, you know, developed a bag of tricks that I'm happy to share. And also the electrifying moment when someone tries something, whether it's in the open mic or within the small group of the workshop that's being conducted, they try something new and it works somehow. It might have been something they considered foolish or silly, but yet look at the reaction in the room. And so each of us with our different workshops have small enough groups in order to have the courage to say, well, screw it, I'll read this or I'll try that. And lo and behold, somehow it advances their notion of what's possible for them and what's possible in the world. And I think that's a lot of, I admire the bravery of the writers who come to us, and how they work hard to achieve, to get themselves a little further, to try something new. And that's inspiring to me. I enjoy it immensely.
Yeah, so that's a good segue, Rex. You know, one thing I definitely want to say is I think we have, and we can continue and we will continue to establish the myriad reasons that we believe in what we have done, what we want to do, the ways and reasons that we've come together. I'm very happy to kind of put my flag in the ground and say to anyone that's intrigued, because frankly, I think there is a demographic and an audience that is very excited about this, and we know who that audience is, and we want to be very accommodating and helpful. But for anyone that is understandably, you know, credulous or, you know, maybe even a little cynical, let me just say that I did write for between grad school and when I went to NOEPE, and published and became a writer in whatever ways that means. Being around a community of other writers is a way to get outside your head. And I think there's a real spiritual aspect to this, especially in the world that I think we all like to complain about, where we're plugged into our devices, we're busy all the time, we don't have free time. And being able to support other writers, I'm not just talking about in the workshop setting, but as a couple of people pointed out, these become relationships where then you're invested. So there's a personal responsibility. What I'm saying is the ROI spiritually and even creatively is immeasurable. I am without a doubt a better writer. I'm a better reader because every year I meet more people and I have more books I need to read and support and promote. So even outside my work at 1455, I have less excuses to not be engaged and spend a little bit of my time giving back. And Justen speaks so eloquently and beautifully about this call to service. It's ultimately a very selfish endeavor, but to get outside of one's own narcissism, because there's an element of that in writing, let's face it, and be invested in other people's writing success, whether there's a payoff for you personally, is so rewarding. And it alleviates the isolation and the doubt and the rejection, because you can live vicariously through other people's successes, knowing how hard it is to achieve that success. Can I get a witness?
Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen. Yeah, I often tell, in fact, I'm working with a group now. I'm working with one personal, as a personal coach for one individual. And she's been pretty much writing in isolation. And I say to her, you know, I think it's time for you to go out and find community, because I think you'll find that not only will you be received, because her writing is wonderful, but she's really hasn't shown anyone, and she hasn't shared that, and she hasn't gotten feedback. And I think it's important that she gets the right community too. You know, sometimes if you just jump in and it's harsh, then that can shut you down. So I definitely have, you know, warned her about that. But to find, and I think this word, Jay, I think you talked about trust, you know, a trusted community, trusted readers, you know, is so important. And it can really, as Sean, you just spoke to too, it can help your writing grow in leaps and bounds. It's, you know, whereas maybe you've just been kind of hoarding it, by stepping into something larger and being in a community that can really encourage you, really can help your writing take off.
We should probably say something about how it is that we all got together and formed Moveable Feast, and what it specifically is and where it's going to live.
Yeah.
From my own experiences, that I was teaching online at 1455 and at the Todos Santos Writers Workshop, and I thought, this is idiotic. This is cross-pollination in the making. So I asked Sean, and Rex also went along with this, if I could, we could do a co-sponsorship for my workshop. And then afterwards, I said to Sean, this makes so much sense for, we're to expand in this way. And Sean, you said, Justen and I were just talking about that. And I said, well, Karen and I were talking about it. So suddenly we all came together. And I think, Moveable Feast is a wonderful term given the geography and the concept of the feast. But, on a practical level, it also means that there's certain resources we can all join together on. And Sean, you've graciously offered us a place to live on the 1455 website, right? Which will include information for all of our workshops and any events we choose to do together. Especially now that we all know that the Zoom is something that we like, there's probably a lot of opportunity for that kind of thing to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in. I want to hear from the others, but yeah, I'll say from my perch, one thing that 1455 has done, right? Like, so I founded it and the executive director, but I stand on the shoulders of giants. Without Justen Ahren and Noepe, I would never have had the framework to imagine such a thing. So even from the get-go, before Moveable Feast was even on the radar, it's almost like this is a discussion that Justen and I have been having for 6 or 7 years. And I think, again, we all believe that there's so much, and we don't need to, and I certainly don't want to compare or critique anyone else's MO, but I think it's safe to say, both as societal level, but even at an industry level, there's inevitably a lot of competition and there's a lot of turf battles. And I don't really have an opinion on that, because everyone has to fight their own way. But what 1455's strength is that we are kind of this open forum that we want to connect people with resources, people with ideas, and take opportunities to empower storytellers. So there's a lot of ways to do that. But one way, and Jane, you just put it perfectly, people that already have existing resources and similar mindsets and goals, it would be foolish not to combine these resources. And again, it's an opportunity to empower our endeavors, which is a no-brainer, but it also helps us bring in more people, because the more of us that are pulling the boat, the more people are going to be able to come in and get involved. So I think there's a very real practical aspect to this. Isn't just an idea. And I think we took pains on purpose to really talk a bit about our backgrounds. Not that none of us need to be defensive, but we've done this. So this isn't just an idea that we think is going to be cool. We're doing it. This is a coming out party. Those of you that are kind enough to join us today and who will hear about us in the coming months, we're doing this, and we're very open to talking to people whether you're an organization or have resources, it's a conversation starter. So there's really we have a consortium. These are the founding members, and we will be running the show and helping facilitate. But there's no reason that this can't become bigger and better in a very organic and authentic way.
I'm in agreement with that, and I really appreciate the leadership in the room, so to speak. And Jay, you have been a leader of the Todos Santos Writers Workshop from the beginning, and now you've helped sort of bring all of this together. So
I would say the other thing that we all can get out of this ourselves is we stand to learn so much from each other, right?
Mhm.
And you know, well, I sort of am troubleshooting something with my workshop planning in this way, or, you know, how are we going to reassure people about COVID and vaccinations and travel, you know, and we can all talk together about these very real issues that then impact our community, people that come to us.
yeah, and you know, most importantly, how to get people to and from the airport. So.
And sunscreen.
And then feed them.
Yes.
And I think too, you know, I feel so honored to be asked to join this group, because just having the 1455 good housekeeping seal of approval, you know, because there's a lot of things out there on the internet, and there are a lot of people promising things, and especially if you're going to travel, I think you know, it will comfort people that are used to sitting in front of their screens that you know, that we know each other, we vouch for each other, we believe that we're offering, you know, quality experiences, and all of the people that trust 1455, that and you know, there are many of us out there. I just think that being involved in that, and you know, that the trust, again, that word keeps coming up, you know, involved with being affiliated with that is good for us, and certainly good for writers who are looking for a way forward, and, you know, looking for something that they feel that they can have confidence in.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I've talked a bit about, you know, over the last several years, when people want to talk to me about 1455, I know that this happens, and there are conferences, there are environments where this happens. So, and I'm all for it. I'm all for promoting any of them. But I feel like networking is something that is just assumed happens in the business world. And let's face it, there is absolutely nothing wrong with joining a community where you're able to find people who might be very interested in helping you. If we're not going to do it for each other, no one's going to do it for us. So there's that practical aspect. I think Justen and I could talk to people all day about the real challenges involved in a year-round operation. I will reiterate that everything we're talking about today is an extension of what 1455's mission is. The goal, whether it's achievable or not, frankly, is to somehow, somewhere, establish a year-round physical location that will be part of all of these different endeavors. What is obvious, and what Justen and I can speak to, is it's expensive. There's a lot of logistics involved. So what I've discovered running 1455 is, you know, in this festival that we're participating in is a perfect example of, I appreciate the kudos, but truly 1455 is nothing if writers aren't getting involved, if people aren't coming to speak, if people aren't participating in the programming. So we're only as good as the people that are involved. But to me, Moveable Feast is also a way to move all of this programming forward and keep it fluid and keep us creative. Because I think what we've learned during COVID is we need to be able to adapt. And a Moveable Feast is an opportunity to not have the pressure or the responsibility of looking after a year-round situation that's not fully funded. We can have these opportunities and make them very affordable for people. That's just truly is a win-win, I think.
And then can our gentle viewers / readers find out more information about Moveable Feast on your website?
Absolutely. So I would invite anyone to come to 1455litarts.org. Again, this is and we planned it this way. This is an introduction. We've been talking about this for the better part of 2021. So I am delighted to have this opportunity to tee up this conversation. There's so much more detail. There's so much more we can talk about in terms of plans and the brass tacks of what we're doing, when we're doing it. This will all live on the 1455 site, which will link to all these other organizations, and it'll become a very seamless experience. But in the coming weeks and months, stay tuned for a lot more information as we start to hammer this out.
Thank
So any closing thoughts or anything we missed? We've definitely got a few more minutes if anyone has anything else to add, which I welcome.
Well, I was just going to say one thing I feel like I tend to think about encouraging people who are kind of new to writing or just getting started, but I think these opportunities are worth it for whether you're just starting or you've been writing for most of your life. There's, not just the workshops, but the ability to get away, to meet new people, to talk to other writers. If you're looking for whether you're looking for inspiration or you're just moving a project along, getting trusted feedback. It's for wherever you are in your writing career. I think opportunities that a Moveable Feast will be presenting are, it's for everyone.
And,
Well
I'd like to add, I say this as someone who picked up and moved to France, so that's my caveat. But I do feel in my heart that writers always benefit from getting a little bit of the dust of the world on themselves. To grow in perspective and see a new place, and the people that live there can only help us as writers and humans.
Hear, hear.
And Karen, I have to say thank you, because you have described in this session so many things that I have felt but don't have a language for about travel. Because I am an avid traveler, but what you've described about the benefits of it and just the reactions of people who come to France. I've seen that in the people who have come to Italy workshop, but also I felt that within myself, but until you're describing it, I really didn't have a language for it. So I thank you for giving me that tonight.
Yay, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Welcome. I think about it a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking about it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank each of you for being part of this consortium, this adventure. I want to thank you for being here today to share your experience, share this enthusiasm that we clearly all feel, and also the confidence that we're doing it. We're not going to do it, we're doing it. Karen, I appreciate you keeping me on task and making sure we do point out, yes, this is meant as, this is the, aperitif before the feast. There's gonna be a lot more information coming, and we want to hear from you, whether it's at the 1455 site or our Facebook page. You can reach out, you can find contact info for any of us. And if you want to get involved or support or help or give us advice or ideas, I think you're going to find a willing audience, because this, again, is going to be as big as we want to make it. And we want it to be very inclusive and positive. And I think we all agree that that's achievable.
Yes.
Voila.
Voila.
So, to be continued. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for checking us out. Again, this is Moveable Feast, introducing a new opportunity for writers. We're winding down our 3-day event. Thank you for being part of this festival. Please stay in touch. Check out 1455 online. Again, it's 1455litarts.org, and find out a ton more information. And we will see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.